Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Chatham House. I'm Robin Niblett, Director of the Institute. It's my very great pleasure to welcome you all here today, but especially to be able to welcome Dr. Enrico Letta, the Prime Minister of Italy. Enrico, it's an absolute pleasure to have you back at Chatham House, but under this new auspices, we're especially pleased. If I could just say very quickly and ask people to make sure that your mobile phones are switched off, please, so we don't get interference either with the speech or with the microphones during the course of the event. Perhaps to state the obvious, this meeting is on the record, but is also being live streamed to our members, so welcome to those Chatham House members who are joining us from outside the building. We will be hearing today from Dr. Letta about Italy and the UK in evolving EU. And I'd like to say that it's a pleasure to hear from somebody with an extensive political career already after just 15 years in politics. Enrico Letta started off as a Minister for EU Affairs in the government of Massimo D'Alema. He was Minister of Industry in the government of Giuliano Amato. He has been a member of the Italian Parliament since 2001, had a stint as a member of the European Parliament between 2004 and 2006, Under Secretary of State to the Prime Minister, Romano Prodi, and then a founding member and Deputy Secretary of the Democratic Party from 2009 until becoming Prime Minister 3 months or so ago in April. But he is not just somebody working on the political side. If I may say so, Dr. Letta, you're also part of our world. As somebody who did his PhD in European Union Studies, but has been running the independent think tank AREL, looking into research and legislation. He's a vice chairman of the Aspen Institute Italia, who we've collaborated with a lot here at Chatham House. Has written a number of books as well on Europe and the economy. And from a Chatham House perspective, we're especially pleased that he's been part of a project we've been running for the last year on European economic governance and was with us in December as a panelist and hosted a meeting of this group in Rome in March. So we look forward very much to your remarks, Dr. Letta. You are combining the future of Europe, the future of Italy, and the future of Britain's relationship in Europe. That strikes me as a very rich menu. No, not too much. No, never too much. Welcome. Over to you.
Thank you, Robin. I was here in Chatham House in December, so I know, and I announced to you that Chatham House brings luck. That is the first.
Keep reading.
Today's subject is a very rich one, is a very wide one. I will try to be very focused on the main point, Italy and UK's role in an evolving Europe. In many occasions, Italy and UK have engaged together to take Europe forward. We have a common commitment to deepen the single market. As a last example, you will remember the letter co-signed by Italy, UK, and other 10 countries in March 2012. We have also launched joint initiatives in many other areas, from development aid to the EU role in the world to defense policy. I believe that it is even more important today that Italy and UK work together on the reforms that can make the European Union more competitive, more effective, and more accountable. Prime Minister Cameron has acknowledged that we need to remodel Europe to make it fit for the challenges of globalization and to address the growing gap between the EU institutions and its citizens. These problems are acutely felt in the UK. The message I'm bringing to London with my visit is that this debate is not for the UK only, but is also for Italy and for the whole Union. Today, the stakes are high for all of us. The coming months will be a decisive moment for Europe. We will have to take decisions that will determine the future of the European project and the shape of the European Union for the years to come. I want to deal 4 points. First, the change underway in the European Union and the outlook for the crisis. Second, what Italy has done so far and what the government intends to do in the coming months. Third, what reforms are needed for the European Union. Fourth point, what Italy and the UK can do together to shape a better Europe. Let me start with the outlook for Europe. The financial crisis has set in motion a process of change within the European Union and the euro area. The drive towards a greater integration of the euro area is at the heart of this process of change. Change has been a necessary response to the scale of the challenge. The crisis has shaken our national economies. It has exposed the flaws of the architecture of the euro area. It has eroded the basis of the concept of the European Union. Reforms were necessary at national level to catch up for the time lost in the years following the introduction of the euro and to come to terms with the new reality of globalization and innovation. Reforms were needed at EU level to fix the flaws in the architecture of the euro. Reforming the governance of the euro area has been the focus of much of the work done by the European Council in the past 2 years. I believe we have made important progress. We have tightened the fiscal rules. We have a reinforced framework for governance of economic policies. We have the European Stability Mechanism in place, and the ECB has introduced the outright monetary transaction framework to stabilize sovereign debt markets. Very important steps have been taken towards a banking union, starting from a common supervisory mechanism. These reforms and actions at national level helped Europe come through the most acute moment of the crisis. The crisis has been painful, but Europe will recover. We are still in a very fragile situation, of course, but many indicators signal that the outlook is improving. Growth will resume by the end of this year. 2014 will be an important year to consolidate recovery. What is the lesson we can draw after 6 years of protracted crisis? In my view, the crisis has shown that individual member states cannot go it alone. No member states, I will say not even Germany, has the economic and political strength to exit the crisis with its own forces. The global economy is highly interdependent. New geopolitical and economic powers are rising fast, and in this new environment, some countries have population and GDP which largely surpass those of the biggest EU member states. Today, size matters again. Member states need the collective strength of the European Union to have leverage. Otherwise, they will be without the power and weight needed to matter in world politics. Either Europe is a global actor in economic terms and in foreign and defense policy, or each of the member states will struggle to maintain the role that it had had in the past century. That's why I believe we need more Europe. This does not mean any kind of Europe. We need a different and better Europe. During the recession, the shortcomings of the current Union have come to the fore. The coming months provide an opportunity to reform Europe, its governance and its policies. Italy and UK will have a special responsibility in driving this change. This leads me to the second point. What has done Italy to respond to the crisis, and what I see as Italy's role in the future? Italy has been an active supporter of greater integration in the euro area. The scale and gravity of problems necessitated shared responses. We have to admit, frankly, that Italy's first contribution to a better governance of the euro area has been to sort out its domestic problems. The most immediate goal for Italian economic policy has been to put our public finances back on a sustainable path. The commitment to a reinforced European fiscal and macroeconomic framework has added credibility to our effort. effort of fiscal consolidation and structural reforms. Last month, the European Union has decided to abrogate the excessive deficit procedure for Italy, acknowledging that our public finances are now on a sound footing. This is a very important achievement for us. Italy is back in the league of virtuous nations. Our deficit is below 3%, and we are committed to respecting this target in the coming years. We want now progressively reduce public debt based on cuts in public expenditure and progressive divestment of state-owned assets and privatizations. In parallel, Italy is implementing an agenda of structural reforms. We have adopted a decree with measures to improve the regulatory environment for business, speed up the administration of civil justice, enhance the attractiveness for foreign direct investments, promote infrastructure investment. 1 week ago, we have set up the Transport Authority to oversee regulation and tariffs in the transport market. The authority will play a crucial role in fostering the opening of the transport market in key sectors such as air transport and railways. In a decree adopted around the June European Council, we have introduced in Italy a package of measures to make the labour market more flexible and oriented to growth. In particular, we have introduced subsidies to hiring of young people and for converting temporary contracts into open-ended contracts. We are committed to continuing this agenda in the coming months. Growth is the most important mission of my government. The reforms are starting to produce good results, and we want to reap all the benefits. Growth is needed to reabsorb unemployment, which remains at unacceptably high levels in Italy. With these reforms, the Italian economy becomes more open, hopefully more dynamic and innovative, and this provides an opportunity for Italy and the UK economic system to understand each other better and cooperate more. Having done much of this homework, Italy can now contribute more proactively to shape the EU actions and policies. In the second half of 2014, Italy will hold the presidency of the European Union. This is a key political priority for my country, and it will be a period of change for the Union with a new European Parliament and with a new Commission. We want the future of Europe to be at the heart of our presidency. We want to lead the discussion on Europe in close partnership with the UK. This will be one of the subjects that I will discuss with Prime Minister Cameron tomorrow. Here comes the third point, the state of the European Union. It is clear to me that to exit from the crisis, the European Union needs a change of gear. The status quo will not bring us anywhere. We need a different Europe. This means that we should not only rediscuss the specific policies of the European Union, but also change its politics. Let me start from the policies. In my view, the focus of the European Union policies must be squarely on growth. Focusing on growth means, to me, being pragmatic, striking priorities right. I think that we set a good example of this at the last European Council, which addressed two of the most pressing problems for Europe. First, the malfunctioning of the labour market with the record high level of youth unemployment, and the malfunctioning of credit markets, where access to credit is difficult and lending rates vary considerably between different parts of the single market. I think that the outcome of the June European Council was a good one. We have to continue on that road in the coming months and make progress on two equally important issues: how to foster innovation and the digital economy, which we will discuss in October, European Council, and how to ensure the competitiveness of Europe's manufacturing industries. Furthermore, Euro area member states should take further steps towards greater integration within the Euro area. The first area is, of course, banking union. Greater integration is necessary to avoid that financial markets remain fragmented along national borders and to reduce the cost of borrowing for the private sector. We have reached important results on the way towards a full banking union, notably on supervision. We need now to work on the second pillar, the resolution of banking crisis. The proposal presented last Wednesday by Commissioner Michel Barnier, in my view, is a good basis. We need a strong, efficient resolution mechanism which ensures timely and objective actions to address banking crisis. Furthermore, we need to enhance coordination of economic reforms to improve economic convergence. We have already in place a good mechanism for multilateral surveillance, but we can make it sharper and more focused on the areas that really matters for the economic union. This has to go hand in hand with a discussion on how the union can give incentives to member states committed to structural reforms in time of consolidation. This can in time lead to some discussion on possible forms of a fiscal capacity for the union. It is premature to enter into the debate at this stage, but I do not believe it is right to take the issue off the table completely. Finally, we need to address the issue of democratic accountability. Democratic control has to happen at the level of which decisions are taken. The role of both European and national parliaments should be strengthened. We have a compass to guide us in this process of reform, which is the report of the 4 presidents and the work of President Van Rompuy on the future of the EMU. The Euro area is the epicenter of change. This change cannot be without impact on the rest of the European Union. Indeed, Italy has always advocated that any new arrangements needed to fix the Euro area respect the integrity of the single market and protects the right of the member states who are not in the Euro area. Looking forward, I do not think that an evolution that sets apart the Euro area from the wider European Union will be a healthy development. The Euro area and the single market are both parts of the economic and monetary union. The Euro area can only prosper within a well-functioning EU as much as the European Union needs a stable and solid Euro area. We need thus an arrangement that can accommodate both the needs of countries that want to move towards greater political and economic integration and countries who are satisfied with cooperation around the single market. This is where I come to my 4th and last point, what Italy and the UK can do together to direct change in the European Union. I will discuss tomorrow with Prime Minister Cameron his agenda for making the EU more competitive, more efficient and more democratic, and thus restore the people's consent for a UK strong role in the European Union. I will hear from him what he feels necessary to ensure that the UK is comfortable with the membership of the Union. This is a debate that is for the UK institutions and for UK people in the first place, I know. Yet, I'm convinced that without the UK, the European Union will not be the same. It would be less open to the world, less liberal in its economic approach, less innovative. For this, we believe that the UK should remain a strong, active, committed member of the Union, and we will try to work together to give stronger arguments to the UK to do so. Italy can be ally for the UK to reduce the returns that make membership of the EU more controversial and vice versa to strengthen the aspects of the European Union which bring a value added to the UK. We both need a Europe which is more concrete, less rhetorical, more suited to the current global economy. One of the main irritants is a bureaucratic and intrusive European Union regulation. We can cooperate together on better regulation, simplification, and how to make the European Union common institution leaner and more efficient, although I believe that strong central independent institutions are essential for the functioning of the European Union. As for the points of strength, I think the single market remains the most important asset. With its 500 million consumers, it remains the main destination of goods and services, and it is the best engine that we have to restore growth in Europe. Without the single market, the UK, as all other member states, will be less attractive for foreign investors, which, once established in one member state, can then move freely around the single market. The single market also provides the leverage to export goods and services to international markets. Italy and the UK can work together to complete the single market, taking further steps in the area of services, of energy, telecommunication, and digital economy. We can also fight together to make the single market more open externally. Trade is one of the main tools to restart growth. Italy and the UK could join forces to promote the rapid conclusion of an ambitious free trade agreement with the United States. The Transatlantic Trade and Investment Partnership has the potential to become the transatlantic common market with all its economic and growth consequences. Italy and the UK economies will be among the main beneficiaries of such an expanded market. We can also act together to give a stronger profile to European Union external relations, for instance, to stabilize the southern shore of the Mediterranean. We can also work together in the area of defense, where we can build on a solid industrial cooperation and where we have important interests in common. This will be the subject, for instance, of the December European Council. In all these areas, UK and Italy can be partners. If we show positive leadership, it will be easier to persuade other member states that Europe needs change. This means talking about the politics of the Union. A frank debate on the legitimacy and accountability of the European Union is a healthy and necessary debate. We cannot close our eyes on the legitimacy crisis of the Union and on the rise of Eurosceptic and anti-integrationist movements. Even in my country, which is traditionally supportive of European integration, large segments of public opinion have turned from indifference to hostility towards European integration. For many people, the EU decision-making is inefficient and removed from their democratic control. What is most worrying, the crisis has challenged the basis of the idea of European integration. We will only be able to advance an agenda of reforms if we have a convincing narrative to explain why we need Europe and why it serves the purposes of the present and future generations. I am a committed pro-European. I have in mind the extraordinary image of Kohl and Mitterrand in Verdun, two old leaders standing hand in hand, remembering the victims of the First World War. The experience of two world wars is a foundational memory for the European integration. But today, these memories no longer provide a sufficient driving force for action. We need to find a forward-looking rationale. We need to build a narrative on what Europe means after 50 years of integration, on how acting together can help us achieve our goals in a changed global environment. Next year, the elections for the European Parliament will provide a focal point for this debate. I want these political issues to be at the heart of the Italian presidency. There is nothing worse than letting people believe that European integration is something that proceeds by stealth, a journey driven by invisible and uncontrollable forces. Europe cannot be a lasting venture unless it is built on convinced, explicit commitment. We have, in the coming months, a chance to remodel Europe. Either we make a successful case for a different Europe, or we will see the success of Eurosceptic forces and the block of the European decision-making process. In conclusion, I believe that Europe is set to go through important changes in the future, whether we want it or not. It is in the interest of Europe and in the interest of our countries that the UK and Italy work together to drive forward this process of change. Thank you.
Prime Minister, thank you very much for those remarks, and delivered thoughtfully. There was some quite punchy comments inside there which I think are worth noting and pulling out here and there. You talked about the need for a more competitive, effective and accountable EU. You talked about the fact that the euro crisis has exposed the fact that all countries in the EU are vulnerable, including Germany, or might including Britain, and that size is going to matter in a new sort of geopolitical world of the sort you described. You said that Italy is back in the league of virtuous nations, its primary structural surplus now, I suppose, away from deficit. But obviously you laid out the list of challenges that it still faces to try and get growth going, unemployment down, etc. You talked quite a bit about democratic accountability, and I think I'd like to come back in a minute to one of the points about that, because that is a very strong point here in the UK. But when you closed your remarks, you were very strong about it as well, that sense that Europe is being led by hidden forces. And you noted at the end a big and strong list of topics that the UK and Italy could potentially work on together. And again, maybe we could come back to some of those topics in a minute. But could I just take two questions up front? I will then open to our audience here. The first is about Italy itself and the economic challenges it faces. My colleague Paola Subacchi and her colleague here, David Tentori, just put out a paper which is actually going up on our website today about kind of breaking the vicious circle, restoring economic growth to Italy. She makes a very interesting point that part of the backbone of Italy's strength had been those small businesses, those small, and I always thought small and medium-sized businesses. But the point she raises is that Italy has a remarkable reliance on micro and small, or small and micro businesses. 66%, I think, of the total, compared to about 31% in Germany, and quite a bit above the 50% Euro average. How are you worried that this crisis has dealt a really important blow to the Italian economic model at some level, and that this model that was able to rely on these small businesses that were so resilient, that right now restructuring them is going to be a tough call? And what could you do about that part of the economy?
In my view, the first point is how to allow these SMEs to be more international oriented, to more global markets oriented. That is, of course, not easy if you are too small. Yeah. This is why we are trying to work for having to push them to growth as dimension. Of course, it's a fiscal issue, first of all, but it's not only a fiscal issue, so it's a labor market issue. It's one of the main point of discussion in my country. But the other main point is of course around is about the labor cost. Right. That is one of the highest in Europe. One of the missions, one of the main goals for me is to reduce the Italian labor cost, tax wage, and we started in reducing labor cost for jobs for youth. That was one of the main achievements in these first 70 days of my government, because we raised, just in 5 years, Italy had the double of youth unemployment figures. That was a disaster for the country, because that created the idea of no hope for the future. If you pass from 20 to 40% of youth unemployment, that creates a sort of lack of confidence in the country. So the main crucial point was, in my view, is to give again confidence on this issue. And this is why we approved this law on reducing the labor cost for youth unemployment. And this is why our faith at the European Council, the last European Council, was to reach there some important steps in a European plan against youth unemployment. So, in my view, this is one of the main issues, and of course we approved some laws on that, but it will be our priority also for the rest of the year.
If I could take you on one other quick comment. This you said here about needing to strengthen the European Parliament and national parliaments. Now, I'm sure David Cameron, who's talked about more red lights and stronger yellow lights in terms of national parliaments being more involved in approving EU legislation as a way of overcoming this accountability deficit. I don't think I've heard him talk about strengthening the European Parliament as well at the same time. Now, you have the advantage of having worked inside the European Parliament as well as outside it, in both the national parliaments and European parliaments. What do you mean about strengthening the European Parliament? For many people, it's got pretty strong as it is since the Lisbon Treaty. What do you mean by strengthening the European Parliament?
For instance, I raise here a proposal. Strengthening the European Parliament means to have next year, for instance, the possibility to have a sort of direct election of the President of the Commission. Because if we convince all the European leaders to say we will vote as President of the Commission, the candidate raised by the party getting more votes in the European Parliament, in the elections, in the European elections, that will bring, in my view, a more democratic European Union. That will bring a more interesting electoral campaign, I would say. If not, it will be a very national electoral campaign. And in the UK, the problem will be how much will be the score of Farage, or in Italy it will be how much will be this party or the other party. But if we are able to start with this idea, people voting for parties and people deciding who will be the next President of the Commission, in my view, that will help the democratic approach, that will help the role of the Parliament, the European Parliament, but in a correct way. In a correct way.
Let me open it up now. I'm sure we'll have lots of questions. If I could ask you please to say who you are. There's a microphone that will come, and we'll try and get as many points in as we can. There was a lady waiting. Sorry. There you are. Yeah, sorry, madam. If you keep going across, keep going across, go. Keep your hand up, please, madam, otherwise we won't find you. No, you've just gone past her. Thank you.
Good evening, Presidente. My name is Maria Agnese Strizzolo. I work for a British Member of Parliament. I've been in London for 6 years. My question is about all the other young people, young Italian people like me. You have spoken about raising employment for young people in Italy, but I believe that since the crisis struck, there has been a hemorrhage of talent and brains from Italy to other countries, both in Europe and outside. Is your government planning to do anything to try and attract all these people, these young, talented people, back into Italy? Thank you.
I think you touched on that a little bit in your last answer, but maybe I think we'll get different questions in each case. So why don't you just touch on that one? We've got time here to take them one at a time to start with.
But I think is the main problem for the country. We are in a situation in which Italy is living a sort of exodus.
And London's benefiting a bit from it. So We have, our international economics program has quite a few.
So it is a huge problem for the country, and we need to create a more attractive country also for having back all these talents, but also for attracting people from around the world, not only from. So this is why we decided to prepare a project. The name of the project is Destinazione Italia. I think is very understandable.
Yep.
Destinazione Italia. This project is a project for attracting investments and talents in the country. We will present the project in September, and we will have this 2 years project from now to the Expo, the Milan Expo in 2015. That will be, in our view, a 2 years time in which we can propose, approve, and present to the world, to the European Union, to the European Union countries, of course, incentives, proposals, ideas to come to Italy, to have incentives, of course, fiscal, not only fiscal, but also incentives in the university system. We are trying with the new Minister of University, Mrs. Carrozza, to organize and to have a part of this project exactly linked to a university system that is today in Italy one of the problems of the country, because people is leaving the country for finding opportunities out of the Italian universities. So I would say, yes, I know that this priority is maybe the most important one for us, and this is why this idea of Destinazione Italia will be one of the main projects for the 2 next years.
Thank you very much. First gentleman here. I can see more hands going up now, but I'm taking them in the order I saw them in. Yep.
Thank you very much. It's Masato Kimura, Japanese journalist and Chatham House member. And Japan and Italy have a lot of parallels after Second World War, defeat and quick recovery and growth and long stagnation and huge government debt. And now aging society and low fertility rate and regulation and also man's period society. And now both countries are going to a totally different way. Your country stick to austerity and reform. And Japan now is going to Abenomics. It's actually printing money. How do you evaluate the future of both countries?
Are you going to print more money? This will be Mario Draghi will be listening to this answer, I think.
The main difference is that Japan is not part of Asian Union. Italy is part of the European Union.
Exactly.
And we have a joint currency, a joint central bank, so we have to be inside this process. We have to share policies. But I invited Mr. Abe, when I met him in Locarno, to come to Italy and to present Abenomics. So I will be very happy to have in autumn Mr. Abe to discuss with him Abenomics, all the ideas he is putting. But I support Mr. Abe, because growth in Japan means growth in the world. And that will be, of course, very, very important for us too. So I hope that Mr. Abe's success will be also our success.
And is pensions, you raised the issue of an aging society. Italy has traditionally been held up as one of the countries in Europe with the biggest risk in this space. You didn't mention it in your commentary here, but is that something you feel you've got under control, or the country's got under control, the costs there of aging society?
Yes, we on that issue, we are, I think, the country in Europe with the best situation, because we already approved last year a very, very tough pension reform. A pension reform with important figures for the future. So on that point, Italy did his homework.
Good. Please, Peter, a question down the front here, please.
I think that the speech that you've just delivered to us, to my mind and in my memory, is the most cogent, blunt, coherent case, pro-reform, pro-European case I've heard from any continental head of government for as long as I can remember. But how do you translate that case into a plan? I mean, where are your allies? Where is the organisation amongst governments and heads of government in the European Council? Where will the strength come from in the Commission and the European Parliament to drive the sorts of changes that you've raised today in order to bring about the transformation which you, I think, quite rightly believe is important to see in the European Union?
My first answer is about Italy and the UK. I'm sure that Italy and the UK can be allied on that, because my idea is that we need treaty changes for allowing the UK to remain on board with a different link with Brussels, and Italy and the rest of the euro area to change something and to have a more integrated euro area, because we are sharing the same currency. And sharing the same currency, as Angela Merkel said in the last European Council, in the discussion we had there, she said, and I was completely agree, of course, if we share the currency, we need to share also other policies. We can't share only the currency without with all the other policies alone. It doesn't work, and it didn't work. So the main point is that we can have a common interest on that. And my answer to your question, Peter, is also because I'm convinced that in the European Union countries we are under-evaluating the risk of having in 2-3 years the UK out of Europe. In my view, is a huge risk, and we have to be very cautious in what we are living, and we have to prepare a discussion on trying to prevent this risk. And European Union, I said it very clearly, and I'm very much convinced on that. And European Union without the UK on board is not the European Union. It's another thing, less innovative, less pro-free market, less liberalized, less able to play as global player in the world. So this is why I think, for instance, Italy and the UK can play a joint activity there, and I'm sure also the others, because I think that what happened in Greece, I will be in Athens in the next 10 days. What happened in Greece is the demonstration that if we share the same currency, we have also to share the other policies. If not, the risk of a national disaster brings an European disaster, and we can't allow this kind of exit.
Thank you. Question right at the back. Let me, because I've been on the front, right at the back. If we can get a microphone to you, of course that is.
Francesco Canepa from Reuters. I would like to ask the Prime Minister.
There we go. Watch out for the camera, don't hit your head.
The Prime Minister about the Interior Minister and Deputy facing a no confidence motion over his role in handing over the daughter and wife of a Kazakh dissident, and the leader of the junior member of his coalition, of the junior party in his coalition, facing a Supreme Court verdict at the end of July. would this government continue if the Deputy Prime Minister has to step down and if Sergio Berlusconi is found guilty again?
I have no doubt that the government will continue and we will overcome these obstacles.
So, he's got luck on his side, remember. He had luck to get here in the first place. The lady here, please, first, and I'll run across the front there. I've got you, sir, as well. I've got you. Yeah. I've got you. Yeah.
Prime Minister, when I talk to these micro companies in Italy about why they don't expand, they give me three answers. They say, above 15 employees, and we get into all sorts of extra difficulties with hiring and firing, and it's just not worth it. Secondly, there's no such thing as equity finance in Italy to all practical intents and purposes, and the banks won't lend us any money, so we can't expand. Or if they do, it's at an exorbitant cost. The third thing they say is, we don't want to expand, because if we deal with strangers and we have a commercial dispute, it won't get sorted out inside 10 years in the courts, and we just settle for half the money and go away. So that's why we only deal with people we trust. When I talk to the investors, they say, well, look, if we invest north of the Apennines, they sort of understand about foreign investment. Go south of the Apennines, and the Guardia Finanza is onto our backs, accusing us of us being crooks. And again, they say too, and then we go to court, and we're there for 10 years. What is your response to these two ends of the spectrum?
Thank you.
I think you raised a crucial point, the problem of the civil justice working in Italy. When the point you raised is exactly the crucial one, not only for Italian SMEs, but also for foreign direct investments. They don't come to Italy also because they say civil justice is not working in Italy. They say to me, you have a sort of weak rule of law in your country. And I think it's correct. Is a huge problem for us. This is why one of the, I think, most important laws we approved in these 70 days is a big reform on civil justice. We approved, is already a law approved. It's very important because in Italy for 20 years we discussed on penal justice because the discussion of I don't want to continue on that point, but because of but the problem, the crucial point is in Italy is civil justice. We have we approved with this law an important change with the introduction of mandatory mediation, for instance. That is very important for our country, and I am very much confident of the result of this reform, because we hope to have a reduction of pending civil proceedings by 1 million cases. We have 4 million pending civil proceedings. You can understand how you're right, of course. So this mandatory mediation will change in our aim, of course, this situation. And as you can see, is one of my first priorities, because in these 70 days, it was one of the first reforms we approved. And of course, it's not enough. We have to do more on that. For instance, for the foreign direct investments, we decided to centralized in 3 courts, Milan, Rome, and Naples, all the civil judgment involving foreign companies. That is important to create a more focused work for helping foreign direct investment coming to Italy. I know it's just the first step, but it's exactly because I completely agree with your point. Is a crucial point for the country. is the point to demonstrate that we are living in a complete rule of law with a civil justice well functioning.
Thank you. And just quickly, one of the points in Paolo Subachi's paper, which I think underscores this point, it noted here that the stock of foreign direct investment in Italy at the moment stands around, according to this, 357 billion. Spain double that, 666, and the UK double that at around about 1.3 trillion. So it just gives you a sense of the opportunity, would be one way of looking at it, of course. Would be a positive way of looking at it. Let me take the question there first, please. Been waiting, and I'm coming this way. I think I'm going to take 2 questions at a time now, just to get more in, because there were a lot of people waiting.
Thank you very much. Dr. Letta, my name is Mike Harvey. How effective and accountable is the continuation of the rotating 6-monthly, what we say in English, Buggins term, presidency of Europe?
Hold that thought, because as yours is coming up and you announced it in about a year's time, you may want to make a comment on that, please. And then the gentleman there with the blue shirt, keep going straight ahead. Okay, we've got it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Prime Minister, for your comments. You've spoken on many areas where you agree with Prime Minister Cameron. But I noticed you didn't speak about what's your opinion on the idea of having powers go towards Europe but then coming back towards Europe. Would you be for this? Would you be supporting him on this issue? Thank you very much.
Powers coming back to the UK, you mean back to the member states?
Both back to the member states and to Europe.
In both directions, yeah. Well, 2 Europe questions, so let's keep those together.
Of course, on this is one of the key points of the discussion. For instance, I read a very interesting paper raised by the foreign minister of the Netherlands, Mr. Timmermans, because this paper was presented as a sort of Eurosceptic paper. I don't think so. I think it's a discussion on how to have a more efficient Europe. Of course, it's not exactly what I think. I think that we need to have there the share of the powers in a different way. And I think in the euro area, as I told you before, we need more integrated policies, economic policies. But I know that there is a different situation between those who are in the euro area and those who are out of the euro area. This is why I think that this discussion about powers and the different balance of powers between national capitals, Brussels, the Commission, the Parliament, is a discussion we have to have. I think it's absolutely necessary, and I think the 6 months presidency will help. Of course, today we have a president and European Council president, Mr. Van Rompuy, who will be the leader, but with this kind of rules and institutions, I will try, of course, to use this opportunity of the presidency to push and to have in these 6 months reforms at European level on the institutional approach, but not only on that. I would like a European Union working, for instance, again for youth, working for having a more competitive Europe, on digital agenda, on other main issues. So Italy will be very much involved in this 6 months presidency.
Now, but that's a good link to the first question, which was what's the value of 6 month presidency still? The reform of the Lisbon Treaty was meant to reduce their value, and yet, as you rightly pointed out, you've got some pretty strong plans for them. How do you answer that question? They continue to be an integral part? Are they part of the accountability at a national level? Are they counteracting a commission that maybe has become more of an administrator than an executive branch?
I don't want a commission as an administrative branch. Okay. I think it could be a big mistake. I think we need to have, of course, the main discussion is how to deal with the 18 and how to deal with those who are out of the euro area. That is the crucial point. And we have to deal with this problem. If we are not able to have this discussion, it will be impossible to give solutions for both answers, because we and Italy and the UK are exactly the demonstration of that. We have different questions, but we want to have answers. We can have answers, but the answer has to be different, of course, because the question is different. But we can have these different answers in the same framework. In the same framework. It's not necessary for the UK to go out, to exit. I think the answer for the UK will be worst, and the European Union future will be worst in that case. This is why I say we have to start with this discussion.
I've got three people who've been waiting patiently, and I'm sorry, people I'm missing. I'm going to have to take the ones that I saw. 3 quick comments, 3 quick answers. Let's see how we go. Starting here, please, in the front a minute, Derek. Shirt here.
Thank you. Derek Honeygold, an aged member of Chatham House, one who's been an enthusiastic European for 60 years, and from a liberal standpoint, I might add. What has been worrying me about recent discussions is that they've, and I speak as one who has taught international and European economics at university for several decades, or did before I retired. What is worrying me is that the discussion tends to have become somewhat introspective about Europe and the economy. What worries me is that we are not thinking enough about the place that a united Europe could play in a new world order. It seems to me this is crucial. And if you were going to pick that up as your theme for next year, that would be excellent. Thank you.
External role. Hold that thought. Martin, yes, you were waiting at the back. No, no question. Then gentleman there with the check shirt, he was waiting, and then I'm coming here. Yeah.
Mike Yeoman's a student at the University of Edinburgh.
A less aged member, yes, that's right.
You said that trade is obviously one of the biggest ways to help improve the global economy. What do you foresee as the biggest barriers to the US-EU free trade agreement, and do you think they'll be easily overcome?
Thank you. Last question here, please. Yeah, right down, second row. Yep, yeah.
John Lloyd, Financial Times. There was, as you know, a shocking speech made in Italy this week by Mr. Calderoli, a senior politician, Vice President of the Senate. Sorry? He's Vice President of the Senate. I can give you his biography if you wish. He made a speech in which he likened a member of your cabinet to an ape. She's an Italian citizen of African origin. And you said that consequences would follow from this. You've condemned it very strongly. What consequences can you ensure that would happen to Mr. Calderoli?
The last question is always the one. There's always one last question. So, in whatever order, external role, US-EU, TTIP, what's the main barrier?
You know, my first reaction to your question is I am very happy you raised this question, because in the room there are many Italian journalists, and they can explain, I hope, to the Italian public opinion how bad is for the image of Italy what Mr. Calderoli did. And of course, his role, he is Vice President of the Senate. In our system, the Vice President it is impossible to have only if in case of resignation he can leave his post, so it's impossible to present a sort of non-confidence resolution or something like that. So it's only if Mr. Calderoli will resign that we will solve the problem. But I think is really a shame for Italy. It's a shame because we are not like that. And the presence of Minister Kyenge in my government is a demonstration that Italy is a modern country, dealing with a big issue for the country, for the future of our country, that is integration. So really, I think you raised an important point. TTIP. I think it will be a big mistake if we are not able to have a good and final agreement on TTIP in the next 2 years, I hope. My goodwill is to try to have the final agreement during the Italian semester. This is my big effort. We will try to have this agreement before the end of the Italian semester, because we need to have this agreement. It will be very important. And of course, it's very important for many arguments, very many topics. There are many topics very important on that.
Your biggest worry?
Of course, is the problem of the discussion about l'exception culturelle.
Okay.
I don't know how it's in...
No, that translates very well in London, especially. There are many French here as well.
Because it's a very important issue, of course, important also for the Italian cultural industry. So we have to have a good discussion on that. But we had the discussion with Obama on this issue in Locarno, and Obama was very open with the idea of to try to very cooperative. So I'm optimistic on that. And I think your point was very important. We have to understand with what I tried to say just some minute ago. Size matters. And this morning I had a meeting in Palazzo Chigi in Rome with the leader of a region of China. He was a regional leader meeting with the prime minister. So it was a sort of asymmetric meeting. But of course, I was leader of a country of 60 million people, and his region was the double than my country. So you're completely right. We need to be global players. And the only way is to be more united at the global level, and of course to try to be cooperative. In the G8 in Locarno, we had, in my view, very important agreements on Syria, on Libya, working very well together. Myself, Hollande, Cameron, Angela Merkel on that issue. Then we have to continue on this cooperative approach, because only together we can play a role at the global level.
Prime Minister, thank you very much. Thank you for answering all 4 of your themes in different points here in the Q&A. Thanks for giving us a robust, I think a realistic, and as was said, a very blunt assessment about what Europe needs to undertake, especially your last comment. And thank you for being a partner. We look forward to every success in your Prime Ministership. Ladies and gentlemen, please a very strong hand for Enrico Letta, Prime Minister of Italy.